Welcome to This Explainer. We're diving straight into the fascinating and, honestly, kind of mind-blowing history of the absolute wealthiest businessman to have ever lived. We're going to decode exactly how he built an empire that, to this day, remains completely unmatched. It's a story of just incredible hustle, ruthless efficiency, and a scale of operation that literally changed the entire world.
You know, when we think about the absolute titans of wealth today, our minds naturally jump to modern tech billionaires, right? People like Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates. But here's the truly wild part. The actual wealthiest man in history died almost a century ago. Think about that. Over 100 years of crazy, unprecedented technological progress, and yet no one has managed to overtake the founder of Standard Oil.
The record just remains completely untouched. $400 billion. Let that sink in. That staggering number is the estimated peak net worth of John D. Rockefeller. It's a level of wealth that honestly almost defies comprehension. And today, we're going to look at the exact playbook he used to amass the whole shebang.
Section 1. The Unbeatable Billionaire and His Surprisingly Humble Origins.
To really appreciate that eventual $400 billion peak, we have to contrast it with this, a mere 50 cents a day. Raised by a traveling con man, yeah, you heard that right, young Rockefeller learned the art of the hustle super early. But his actual career kicked off after he dropped out of school at 15. He was working as a simple bookkeeper in Cleveland for just half a dollar a day.
Section 2. From Bookkeeper to Broker. This really reveals his early financial genius.
So, when his bosses refused to give him a meaningful raise, this 18-year-old didn't just sit there and take it. Instead, he started his very own produce brokerage. Relying entirely on his stellar reputation, he managed to secure a massive loan of $4,000, which was a huge sum back then. He started trading grain, hay, and meats, and get this, by the end of his very first year, he had recorded sales of $500,000. It was such a massive success that suddenly, literally every bank in Cleveland was practically begging this teenager to borrow their money.
Moving on to Section 3, Mastering the Oil Rush, sparked by the 1859 Pennsylvania strike.
Now, when the first American oil well was discovered just east of Cleveland, thousands of people naturally rushed in to strike it rich. But Rockefeller, well, he realized something that pretty much everyone else missed. He saw folks going totally bust trying to find oil and decided that the chaotic drilling business was just way too risky. So his plan was simple. He'd let others go through the heartbreak of actually finding the oil, and he would simply buy it from them to refine into kerosene.
Waiting patiently until an 1863 rail line finally connected Cleveland to the oil fields, he executed this absolutely brilliant efficiency playbook. You see, early refineries could only operate at about 60% efficiency. So Rockefeller assembled a crack team of seasoned chemists and engineers, and not only did they maximize that refining process, but they also captured entirely new profits by finding uses for all the previously discarded byproducts. We're talking selling off paraffin wax, tar, and naphtha. He wasted absolutely nothing. It was pure genius.
All right, Section 4. Building the Ultimate Monopoly and His Ruthless Acquisition Strategy. Within just 2 years, his super-efficient refinery was worth over $70,000. But he didn't just want to compete, right? He wanted the entire board. His buyout playbook was notoriously ruthless. He would invite a competitor over, literally open up his books, and mathematically prove that he could operate at a loss far longer than they could even stay solvent. Then he'd offer them a solid buyout price and an executive position in his company. Basically, join Standard Oil and get rich. But if they refused, well, he would slash the price of oil and kerosene by up to 80% to just completely bankrupt their operation. Game over.
The sheer speed of his takeover was just breathtaking. In 1865, he's just one of 26 refineries in Cleveland. Fast forward to 1870, and he's acquired almost all of them, officially incorporating Standard Oil of Ohio. By 1880, this strategy is working so incredibly well that he dominates refining across the entire northeastern United States. And because his business was just growing way too massive and complex to handle normally, in 1882 he reincorporates as the Standard Oil Trust in New Jersey, holding stakes in over 40 local companies.
So by 1880, Rockefeller had basically strangled the competition to secure a frankly terrifying 90% monopoly over the entire country's oil production. I mean, let that sink in for a second. 90%. 90% of a resource that was rapidly becoming the absolute lifeblood of the industrialized world was now controlled by just one organization.
And with that insane level of dominance, he was actually powerful enough to summon the owners of massive rail companies and simply demand personal transportation rebates.
These secret backroom rail deals meant he paid significantly less to transport his oil than anyone else even could. This practice, understandably, sent shockwaves of fear through politicians and industrialists nationwide. They were terrified he was going to inspire similar, unstoppable monopolies in their own sectors.
At its absolute zenith, run right out of his Broadway headquarters, the physical and financial scale of this operation was just staggering. We are talking 20,000 oil wells, 4,000 miles of pipeline, 100,000 employees. By some estimates, the true worth of the Standard Oil Trust at its peak was $1 trillion.
Which brings us to Section 5, the profitable breakup and the 1911 dissolution. Eventually, facing heavy pressure from newly discovered foreign oil deposits and armed with the 1890 Sherman Antitrust Act, the federal government finally stepped in. In 1911, the Supreme Court shattered Standard Oil into 34 completely separate entities. Now, on paper, this looked like the ultimate defeat. But looking back at the data, we really have to ask ourselves, was this dissolution actually a punishment, or was it a massive payday? Because over time, many of those 34 fragmented pieces slowly started to merge back together. Today, the modern remnants of Standard Oil make up the massive energy giants we all know, companies like ExxonMobil, Chevron, and BP. They became incredibly large, hyper-profitable companies entirely in their own right.
But here is the absolute kicker. Because John Rockefeller wasn't actually actively managing the company at the time of the breakup anymore, he quietly just kept his ownership stakes in all 34 of those newly independent successor companies. As they grew and started paying out massive dividends, we're talking over $500 million in just 20 years, their collective growth actually catapulted his personal net worth to that untouchable $400 billion record we talked about. The breakup was quite literally the most profitable event in his entire life. As we close out this explainer and reflect on the tech billionaires of today who are constantly making headlines, it leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought. With today's global regulations and rapid technological shifts, could anyone ever again replicate the chilling, methodical efficiency of John D. Rockefeller? Honestly, will any modern innovator ever build a monopoly powerful enough to dethrone history's greatest empire? Let that sink in. Thanks for watching, and keep questioning the history behind the headlines.